Many teachers, learners, and research state that insufficient recycling is one of the most important reasons for forgetting the newly learned vocabulary. There are two main reasons why we forget. The first one is due to the disappearance of memory, as it is not available any longer. The second one is due to the retrieval failure related to wrong storage. Psychologists relate these reasons to forgetting in short term memory and forgetting in long term memory. Trace decay and displacement are given as explanations for forgetting information from short term memory. Interference, retrieval failure, and lack of consolidation are given to explain forgetting from long-term memory. You can read McLeod 2008 for more information, and the link is on the web page. Here, let's look at them one by one. Trace decay theory suggests that short-term memory can hold information for between 15 and 30 seconds if it is not rehearsed. After this time, the information decays and fades away. Displacement theory suggests that if short-term memory is full, new information takes the place of old information by pushing it out. Rehearsal is suggested again to transfer information from short-term memory to long-term memory by Atkinson and Shiffrin's model. Interference theory explains forgetting by relating it to interference or disruption of other memories. This may happen in two ways. Either previous learning can interfere with new learning, or new learning can result in confusion with previous learning, as Badley 1999 suggested. Retrieval failure occurs when memory cannot be accessed even if it is in long-term memory. To overcome this problem, appropriate retrieval cues can be presented. People tend to remember material better when there is a match between their mood at learning and at retrieval. There may be two messages for teachers to remember to prevent retrieval failure. The first one is when the participants are in positive mood, retrieval is easier and stronger than a negative mood. The second one is when learners have personal relevance to the information, retrieval is greater. As you can see, the last one, lack of consolidation, is given to explain the biological process of memory and forgetting. The consolidation process means the transmission and recording of new information from short-term memory to long-term in a certain amount of time in the nervous system due to the modification of neurons to create permanent memories. Please look at this chart that shows both normal learning curve and space learning curve, and also normal forgetting curve and space forgetting curve. This brings together Ebbinghouse's forgetting curve and the Thalheimer's learning follow-on mechanism to remember what is learned. As you can see, we forget new information in a few days if we do not put it into action immediately. And here the reactivation curve shows the best ways to activate the newly learned information for long-term memory. As revealed before, and as the diagram shows, frequent review of learned material can dramatically reduce the rate of forgetting. To overcome the problem of forgetting, it is important to recycle the verse in different ways and at equal levels of depth. Research suggests that if learners use or encounter the verse in a different way from that in which they first met them, then better learning is likely to be achieved. Another important aspect when recycling certain verses for students to make sure that they really understand the meaning and the use of those words. Remember the input on vocabulary presentation in session 3. It is strongly recommended that learners should try to apply the new words to their real-life events or activities, which make personalization quite important for better retention. The chart shows, again, how easy it is to forget and how vital it is for teachers and learners to find and exploit strategies that help the storage of vocabulary in long-term memory. Let's look at what many authors in ELT world said about the principles that should be followed in order to support long-term retention and vocabulary. Probably the most important of these can be listed as the following. Let's look at this semantic map. Here you can see the most important remembering strategies organized in a semantic map for you. You can see the same picture, the same map on the website. Okay, long-term retention. Repetition becomes even more effective if it is done in spaced intervals, where the space between these repetitions gradually increases. If repetition or recall happens in different occasions, memory is supported more. Retrieval and use. When a learner is encouraged to retrieve and use a new word in a sentence, it makes the word much easier to recall in the future. Use it or lose it principle is applicable here. Pacing. If learning happens in several different opportunities and individual learning style and pace are taken into consideration, learners can remember words better. And there is also cognitive depth. If learners make decisions about words, spelling, pronunciation, and so on, they are remembered more easily. To get better results, learners can be given opportunities where they have to make decisions about them. In brief, learned words need to be rehearsed and revised systematically to be remembered permanently. Although simple repetition is an effective way to keep the information in memory, it should be rehearsed properly in order to transfer it. In summary, memory retrieval requires revisiting the nerve pathways the brain formed during the encoding process, and the strength of those pathways determines how quickly the memory can be recalled so that the new input can go to the long-term memory. Here is a memory quiz for you. Please decide if these sentences are true or false. Let's move on to deliberate recycling. Nation 2001 emphasizes that learning vocabulary is a cumulative process and that it must be deliberately taught, learned, and recycled. This is critical for several reasons. Learners need to encounter the words in a variety of rich contexts, often requiring up to 16 encounters. Learners remember words when they have manipulated them in different ways, so variety is essential for vocabulary teaching. And learners forget almost 80% of the new words within the first 24 hours after class. So it's important to follow up a vocabulary lesson with homework that recycles the words. Let's move on to space recycling. One of the important findings of vocabulary learning and long-term memory studies is the determinant role of space repetition, which has a major impact on learning and retention of vocabulary. Nation 2001 says it's not just how many times a word is encountered, but at what intervals a word is encountered. Nation differentiates between space repetition and mass repetition, and spaced repetition involves spreading out review sessions over an extended period of time with increasingly lengthy intervals between each session. With mass repetition, he refers to spending an uninterrupted period of time studying material that one wishes to learn and remember. Here is another question for you. Please write your answer in a short sentence. Let's remember what we said in session 3, vocabulary practice. We said that vocabulary practice should be cognitively engaging and motivating. And we also said that they should be meaning focused. And also we said that they should have the elements of personalization and personal involvement, which will create active participation. Individual and group presentations or competitions can serve this purpose maybe. We also said that they can come at the start or end of a lesson. And giving homework for recycling seems to be very important here. We have talked about forgetting, long-term retention, and the importance of deliberate recycling. Tony Buzan and Peter Russell suggested 5 steps for total recall, and Spencer summarized them like this. Step 1, presentation and practice of what is to be learned. Step 2, revising for 10 minutes after the lesson. Step 3, revising for 2 to 3 minutes, 24 hours after the lesson. Step 4 is revising for 2 to 4 minutes 1 week after the lesson. And step 5 is revising for 2 to 4 minutes 1 month after the lesson. A brief and practical summary of the input above might suggest that vocabulary recycling activities may work better if they are frequent and involve the principles discussed in session 3 and session 4, which focused on vocabulary presentation and practice. Here is another question for you. Please fill in the blanks with the terms on the left. Thank you for listening. See you at the last presentation of this session in chapter 3.